So Perplexity, how many people use Perplexity? Is it on your phone right now? That's got to make you feel good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you don't every day meet somebody that's unicorn status in less than 2 years. And that is definitely a sign of the times in AI, so congratulations on that. Would love to hear your version of the founder journey, because it's been a very, very short timeline. And your stepping stones in there include Google and OpenAI, and now your startup, and then before that, Berkeley. Just compress that down to your journey to get to where you are today.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Firstly, you said it right. AI, the whole AI is basically running on exponential time. So the regular time feels logarithmic relative to AI, the speed at which we're going. He's asking us to sit down. So.
All right, stay awake.
So yeah, it feels amazing, exhilarating, stressful, all at the same time. There's this phrase, uncomfortably exciting, where you feel the adrenaline all the time, and you feel like you'll run out of business any day, but at the same time, you feel like your business is growing really fast. So that's what it feels like, inflection points every single day.
Wow. So tons going on in the tech stack. Do you want to?
Yeah. So I'll start with a quick story of my journey with Perplexity. I had a crazy surgery, just a few months ago, and I was sitting there in the hospital just before and after the surgery, and I could barely see my screen, and the only thing I could use was Perplexity, because first of all, I'm one of those people who's always worried about, like, doctors are telling me, is this true? And if these are my blood reports, what does it mean? And so I was using Perplexity all the time. Nice large fonts giving me a 5-sentence summary of what I need to know. So I encourage everybody to look at Perplexity. So magical aspect about Perplexity, for those of you who have tried, is the summarization, less hallucination with links out there. So if you get a little bit more technical here, you're using underlying large language models right now. But what do you see going forward? I mean, are we going to see Transformer continue to win out over the next 2 years? Jan LeCun is going to talk about joint embeddings with JEPA, of course, the progress in RAG. I know you have certain type of RAGs and fine-tuning that happens on the fly. Tell us a little bit about what's under the hood and what allows you to keep this moat ahead of everybody else.
Right. So for Perplexity, we're not like bound to the transformer or any model. It's more a software system that takes an existing language model, a state-of-the-art language model, state-of-the-art RAG system, and orchestrates the search and the LLM together into an answer engine, right? LLMs, large language models, whether it's a transformer or state space model or any other architecture, these are models that are like amazing reasoning engines. You can prompt them, you can instruct them, you can basically program them to do amazing things. And basically, you want to harness the reasoning power in these engines with facts that exist in the form of regular search indexes that have been built over like last 2 decades, and combine these 2 powers and create a new entity called the answer engine. It's like ChatGPT and Wikipedia having a baby together. And that is Perplexity. Why? Because a regular ChatGPT allows you to chat with these really general reasoning model. It feels amazing, but it doesn't always get things right. And Wikipedia has almost all the accurate facts in the world, extremely well peer-reviewed, a lot of citations, references. You build trust when you read it, and like you can get to know about anything, about any topic, except it's not personalized to you. The same Wikipedia page is written for everybody. So you might be reading a Wikipedia page about the Oppenheimer movie, and you might only be interested in like certain things there, like about the actors. Someone else might be interested about like how it was filmed, right? Like you don't have to read through the whole thing. It's just not the best experience. How would it look like if we combine the 2 together and bring the world's knowledge and give it to you in a personalized conversational manner at your fingertips everywhere? That's what Perplexity is.
Just to share maybe a little bit more about what's under the hood then. Clearly, you're still using somebody else's APIs.
That's right. So the user doesn't care whether you use your own models or use OpenAI's or Anthropic's or Mistral's or Meta's. Like really, they don't care. When they come and use the product, they just want good answers, good personalized, fast, speed, accurate answers. So our model is not our moat. Our moat is how we orchestrate many different models in one single product lower the costs without compromising on accuracy, and make sure that the answers are accurate as possible, so lower the hallucinations, make sure that the latency is really good, and make sure the answers are presented in a readable manner. We can still do a lot of things here. We are not there yet. Nobody wants to read like a big chunk of paragraphs written for like any question you ask. So you have to go above and beyond to understand the user intent and present the answers differently according to the type of query. If you can nail all these three things together, which cannot be done with just one giant model to do everything, but rather really understand how to work for different type of queries and like really understand what the answer type should be, and really make sure that you can use a family of an orchestra of models. One model to understand what query, what type of query it is. One model to like reformulate and expand a query into like multiple queries. Go and collect like pages relevant to each of them. One model to aggregate and summarize all the content you picked. One model to just chunk all the documents into different embeddings. And another model to like suggest next questions to ask you. Now all of these are working in parallel at the same time when you ask a question on Perplexity, and you don't care. That's the thing. You don't care what happens under the hood. When you're using the product, it should just work. It should be fast, and it should feel good. That's what there's the same thing with. There's a whole famous Jeff Bezos video, right? Like, internet or internet doesn't matter. What matters is the customer experience. Like same thing here. GPT or a Claude or Llama or Mistral, doesn't matter. What matters is the answer is accurate and readable.
So I think that's great advice, especially for all the people doing startups, and there are a lot of them around here, as you would know. One specific, just follow up on that, if somebody was starting a company today, do you see a year or two from today, Perplexity or these other startups operating on open source foundation models or calling APIs like GPT-4?
I would definitely, even if, it's not really a dichotomy. If you start a company and you want to build out a product and get it in the hands of people, do the easiest possible thing, like take someone else's API, whether it's GPT 3.5 or Haiku or the latest Mistral model that offered as an API by any of these API providers, doesn't matter. Just go take it and get the product out in the hands of people, whatever costs you the minimal thing, and collect a lot of data, see where the problems are failing and not failing, and then go and collect a data set that addresses these failures. And then you have to go back to open source, because that's what will let you really controllably fine-tune things. There's only so much you can do with prompt engineering, and the most capable GPT-4 or Opus-like models are really amazing that just prompt engineering gets you the solution, but that's still pretty expensive. We're all supposed to build businesses here, right? And to do that, you have to be profitable at some point. So you cannot be spending so much on these really large frontier model providers. So you have to go back to open source and try to specialize the experience to what your product is supposed to do, and that lets you achieve better cost efficiency.
That's Mark Gorenberg, the chairman of MIT, and as soon as he said that, he started taking notes. So you know what you're saying is worth remembering.
Oh, thank you.
So on that note, I mean, if there's difference between open source and open weight and open APIs. And if you start thinking about not B2C but B2B, and especially creating startups or solutions for enterprises, whether it's on-prem or kind of privacy preserving, how do you see that? I know you right now have a B2C product,
yeah.
But companies like Anthropic are really targeting
That's right.
B2B products.
Yeah, I mean, we will also, first of all, a lot of people tell us that we love using the Perplexity Pro, the subscription plan, but we are banned from using it at work. Microsoft bans Perplexity for all their employees today, because they want everyone to use their products. It's not a new thing. They've done that for Google in the past. But in general, there is a skepticism on every employer to let people use these AI answer bots, the chat bots at work, even though they know that their employees massively benefit from it in terms of productivity, time saved, how fast they can get work done, all of these things. So any answer bot in the market today, if you want it adopted in the hands of as many people, especially when the value provided is a lot more at work time than personal time, you should figure out a way to be adopted in the enterprise. And that requires you to work on compliance, security, data retention, and making sure that you can even have self-hosted versions of your product on the client that they have. So all these things should be worked on, and we will also work on it. And then there's the other part of whether the foundation model provider, if you're not the provider yourself, you have the right SLAs with them to make sure they delete the data periodically. And both Anthropic and OpenAI provide this. And if you're going to have your own models and you're going to let others use it, you should also provide this. So these are the current ways in which we're working. I think fine-tuning, when you're taking someone else's model and fine-tuning on your own data, that is even higher level of requirements. You do need to make sure that data warehouses are secure. This is where companies like Databricks or Snowflake are pretty well positioned because they get the full end-to-end package to the customer. We're not going to work on that market yet.
So can I go back to your founder journey for just 1 second here? Your business plan, your company's going like this. Your business plan is very, very aggressive. And I don't usually associate that with PhD backgrounds. You kind of associate that with people who drop out after freshman year.
Yeah.
So what is it about you and your journey that got you on this trajectory? Because there is a version of the world, which I think you very likely believe in, where people don't do much Google searching 3 years from today. They just talk to Perplexity.
So, first, going back to PhD, I just want to mention one thing here. I applied to MIT and Berkeley. Berkeley admitted me, MIT rejected me. And my mom, I went and told my mom, hey, I got into Berkeley. She's like, what is Berkeley? Did you get into MIT? I was like, no, I didn't get into MIT. Then she was so disappointed. And I tell her, hey, Berkeley is also a good college, And I don't even know what Berkeley is. I only know MIT. So that's the extent to which MIT is popular. And I'm very happy to be at MIT for the first time.
And as a professor, I always tell the students here, although there are many examples of people dropping out and studying, Microsoft and Facebook and so on, be cool, stay in school, and follow. Because if you see the current AI trend, most of the leaders have finished their PhDs.
That's true. That's true. So going back, what does PhD prepare you for? I think it prepares you for taking risks. That's the common feature between doing a PhD and doing a startup. When you're a new student, there's lots of low-hanging fruit ideas that your senior students in your own lab have ready-made for you because they don't have time to work on it and they want somebody else to help them. And you can get 4 or 5 papers published in 1 year if you're just literally following the instructions of your professor or your senior grad student. And generally, all the advisors want their students to do that, to feel productive, to feel like they got some wins, and get settled into the new place, and then take the risk. That's just the established wisdom in grad school. I also did that. The first paper I wrote was just someone else's idea, not mine. But I didn't like it. I was not enjoying it, and felt like, okay, this is the time to take risks. Why am I even here? I would rather go and work in Google Brain or some other research org if I'm not taking risks. And the part of taking risks in PhD is your advisor doesn't advise you anymore. He's like, yeah, go do your thing, and if it works out, we can consolidate and figure out a paper. So for a period of 8 months, when I was an intern at OpenAI in 2018, my PhD started in RL, and I saw this guy Alec Radford write GPT-1, the first version of GPT. It's amazing to think this was just 6 years ago. But at that time, everybody ridiculed it. Nobody even understood it. It's oh, it's just yet another autocomplete. But some of us knew that this was real. And so I had to go back to my advisor and say, we have to this whole thing, if you're in crypto, pivot to AI. So that was a moment for us. It's if you're in RL, pivot to generative models. It was called generative models, not generative AI. So, and that spent 8 months just not having any paper. But it was truly worth it. It helped me shape fundamentals in deep learning, generative models, unsupervised learning, and that's what helps me to do all this today. So I think PhD generally teaches you to take a lot of risks, be aggressive. There's no the whole shoot for the fences. It's not a truncated outcome distribution. It can change your life.
So that OpenAI experience is a perfect segue into my next question. So you're working with GPT-1. One of our partners actually wrote a book with GPT-2, and it was terrible. But But it was obvious to her that the fact that it could write a book at all was indicative of something that a year later would be massive. So I think your experience with GPT-1 must have given you early insight into where things are going. Now the next iteration is multimodal.
Yeah.
And that's only a year away, and we're going to be shocked yet again. What's Perplexity going to look like on those foundation models?
Yeah, so I mean, the first idea of Perplexity I pitched to our first investor, Elad Gil, who's an MIT alumnus, was, you wear your glass. The best way to disrupt Google is ask questions through a glass, and then it has a microphone, it understands what you're saying, and then gives you an answer. And this way people don't have to type into a search bar, and they get answers read out to them on their AirPods. I think this will happen, right? Whether we do it or somebody else does it, doesn't matter. It's inevitable that like search will be in the form of like on the go everywhere, hence device free as much as possible, voice based, and using vision inputs, not just text. And I think that we want to work on that too. That's what I think true multimodal search is. And then like asking questions anywhere. Like imagine you can talk to any device ideally, right? Like that doesn't have to be just your phone. And you ask questions. You go to a shopping mall and like there's just like near any row of dresses, you can just ask questions to some device there about anything. It's almost like a concierge, a bunch of concierge everywhere. I think all these things are possible. Or you can point your finger at something and ask questions. Like we have to reimagine hardware along with all these like new models, and that's what I'm excited about. Like how Perplexity can play a role there.
So this kind of a Tony Stark, Iron Man, also MIT guy. The Tony Stark vision of being able to interact, augment your world. This does require, you described Perplexity as really an orchestration engine that brings all these models together. Once it's multimodal, what's in the physical, in the dimensional world, it's only going to get more exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of that will be dependent on hardware.
Yeah.
And on one end, we're seeing Blackwell and trillions of transistors. On the other hand, if it's mobile, augmented, it's going to be edge computing.
Yeah.
So given that, so share us your thoughts on kind of the scaling laws, trillion parameters, 100 trillion parameters. Also share your thoughts on companies like Cerebrus and Grok.
Yeah.
What's the general landscape for compute and hardware?
Yeah. I think like the NVIDIA hardware is going to be the best for training. Nobody can compete there at all. Now for inference, that's where like it's more subtle. Right now, it turns out that even though you think H100 is a bigger beast than A100s and it's likely better for training, but for inference you can use cheaper GPUs, it turns out not to be the case. It turns out that you can pack more density per chip because the chips are more powerful. So instead of buying like 64 GPUs or 100 GPUs for serving more users, you can buy like 24 GPUs of H100s instead of like 128 A100s and serve the same number of users because you get higher throughput with fewer chips basically, and you spend lower too. So it helps you to scale in terms of server racks better to use more powerful chips and fewer of them if you want to do a device on the cloud. But if you want to do inference on the device itself, that's where I think NVIDIA doesn't actually necessarily play a big role. And they have like a lot of edge GPUs too, and Google has edge TPUs. Apple has probably the best hardware for on-device. I think like you have to use all at some point you have to build custom compilers if you're building your own hardware there. It's not clear to me what the software consolidation there is going to be. I don't see CUDA playing having a massive moat for on-device inference. So that's where I think some people can build new companies. As for Grok, I think what they're doing is very exciting. Even if they're not replacing NVIDIA for inference, they're definitely going to bring the prices down. Or else like margins for NVIDIA is just going to be so high, nobody can compete there. So I hope that it brings inference prices down when there's more competition. And that's great for everybody because we can scale our products to more users without having to pay as much.
I mean, some of these hardware companies are 4 to 5x better than NVIDIA in the price performance, training, and even more on inference. So do you see this
I think
kind
it's
of one dominant player has emerged in training. Do you see dominant players emerging in inference or edge devices? I mean, you mentioned Apple, but setting that aside.
Yeah, so if you decouple inference into cloud inference and on-device inference, there's not going to be one dominant player for on-device. But for cloud inference, even today, I would say NVIDIA is the dominant player. And for other people to compete there, they need to move really, really fast on the software that helps people to deploy on their hardware. And that's what is lacking today. Like everybody still works on NVIDIA software. They use TensorRT for like inference. Like, and NVIDIA is like moving really fast. Like that's why they are our investor too. We work with them on TensorRT. We work with them on fine-tuning infrastructure like Nemotron, and they're just like moving really fast. So whoever wants to compete there should also move equally fast on the software stack too.
Yeah. So we only have time for one more question, according to John there, and I really have to ask you this because I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. So your founder journey makes it seem like PhD, OpenAI, brilliant idea, Perplexity. But somewhere in there, you ended up seed investing in Mistral, Cognition Labs, Grok, 11 Labs. There's got to be more to the story there. How did that happen?
I mean, someone on Twitter told I just invest in hype companies. Actually, that's what I do. I don't have any time to like evaluate all of them. Sometimes they ask me for investing, and if the products are good, it feels good to use them. I just invest. Like there's no time to evaluate. Oh, like what's the business model? What's your moat? Because if somebody did that to us, to me, or Perplexity, it would be ridiculed very fast. Like, how are you ever going to compete with OpenAI or Google? Like, for every startup, you can come up with like thousands of reasons of why they wouldn't work. So like if you only focus on that, you're never going to be able to invest in any of these companies. Mm-hmm. So rather, you would focus on what does the success outcome look like if in case it works, and if that seems pretty big and the downside is not that high either, you should just go for it. These are asymmetric bets.
So that makes it sound like all these insanely awesome startups came to you. Did it all happen in the last 18 months?
Yeah, so 11
while
Labs.
you were
Yeah, we share an investor with 11 Labs, Nat Friedman. Yeah. He's one of the most popular AI investors, and so he connected us, Matty and me, we are customers of 11 Labs. Perplexity's voice features, our podcast, Discover Daily Podcast is all powered by 11 Labs voice, and we work very closely with them on voice to voice. For Grok, we got connected through Chamat. He's an investor in Grok. So I think like Mistral was similar. Like I knew some of their founders before, and also like we use their models, like a lot of people here. So there's like some synergy between what we do at Perplexity. Like if Grok works out, we'll do inferencing on Grok. We use Mistral's models. We use 11 Labs' software. So there's a lot of synergy between like my investments and how Perplexity can make use of these other companies' services or products.
I really just want to point out how mind-blowing. Like all of what you just said is all in the last 20 months.
That's right.
The founding of the company, the unicorn valuation, the investments, everything you just described, that is completely unprecedented in world history to be moving through life at a pace like that.
So just to end, I know we have 30 seconds left. What would you share as top 3 sectors or even top 3 startup ideas that folks should be thinking about here?
I think on-device would be really cool. I'm learning more about it myself. Somebody was telling me yesterday that if they were to start a company today, they would really, really work on a 7 billion parameter model that's as good as Claude Sonnet or somewhere like 3.5 to 4, GPT 3.5 to 4 in that spectrum capability. And that model could let you like control the phone, like be able to control the OS, and like that's the sort of company that you would expect OpenAI or Anthropic to not overly invest in because they want to go after the most general, extremely capable reasoning model that lives on the cloud and like can do everything. But this is the sort of model that will help you build a lot of value for every customer. Every consumer can just use it. Some of you might have seen MKBHD's criticism of Humane Pin. While it was harsh, there's one major point there. The latency is very poor, and that can be only addressed if the models are living on device.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Absolutely, an honor, pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.